The planet Vorith Prime was once a peaceful world of green valleys and silver skies. Its people, the Vorethi, lived in quiet harmony. They had no armies, no weapons of war, and no reason to fight. For centuries they believed the galaxy had forgotten them, but one night the sky burned red. The attack came without warning. The Draxian Empire, known for crushing weaker worlds, appeared like a storm. Giant warships filled the upper atmosphere. The ground shook as energy blasts tore through the cities. Towers of crystalline light fell like sand. The Vorethi screamed as their homes vanished in fire. Inside the main city dome, Iran Voss, the chief of communications, stood before a control panel covered in warning lights. His hands trembled as he activated the old distress system, a signal meant to reach anyone who could hear. "Emergency transmission," he said, his voice breaking. "This is Vorith Prime. We are under attack by the Draxian Empire. Any fleet, any power, please respond. We beg for aid. Our shields will not last." The message echoed into the void, disappearing into deep space. Outside, the Draxian soldiers began landing. They were tall, armored creatures with black eyes and cruel weapons. They moved through the streets, rounding up survivors. The Vorethi tried to fight with tools and farming drones, but it was useless. The Draxians laughed as they destroyed everything that moved. Hours passed. The distress beacon blinked again and again. No answer. Iran stood alone in the control room, watching the city burn through the window. The sky glowed orange. He whispered, "No one is coming." Then suddenly the console flickered. A single green light appeared on the screen. Her voice came through the static in a calm, deep, and human. "Message received." Iran froze. "Who is this?" The voice spoke again. "This is Fleet Command. Your message has been logged. Stay alive. Humanity is coming." Humanity? The word felt ancient. The Vorethi had heard stories, tales of an old species called humans, known for their power and rage. But they vanished long ago, after a great war that nearly broke the stars. Most believed they were myths, like ghosts from a forgotten time. Iran shouted into the comm, "Humanity? Is this a trick? The humans are gone." No reply came. The signal ended. He stared at the silent console, heart pounding. Could it be true? Could the humans still exist? Outside, thunder rolled across the burning city, but there were no clouds. The sound grew louder, deeper, shaking the ground. People looked up through the smoke-filled sky. Tiny points of light appeared, dozens, then hundreds, streaking across the heavens. The Draxian soldiers stopped firing and turned their heads upward. Their commanders shouted in confusion. Sensors screamed warnings of unknown ships entering orbit. Then came the light. The upper sky exploded with blue fire as massive vessels dropped out of warp. Their hulls were dark grey, scarred with battle marks. On their sides were strange old symbols, white eagles, faded by time. Their engines glowed like suns. The largest ship transmitted a signal across every open channel. "This is the United Nations fleet. Planet Vorith Prime, your distress call has been received. Hold position. We are engaging the enemy." Iran fell to his knees. The humans were real. Above, the Draxian fleet turned to face the newcomers. Their commander barked orders, sending fighters toward the human ships. The first wave of Draxian craft launched plasma fire, bright red lines cutting through the black sky. But the humans didn't flinch. One word echoed through their comms. "Fire!" Blue lances of energy ripped through space. Every Draxian fighter vanished in a flash. Their capital ship tried to retreat. It never made it. In a single minute, the sky turned from red to white. The ground shook as burning metal fell like rain. From the clouds above, drop pods began to fall. They crashed into the city streets with heavy thuds, cracking the stone. Steam hissed as the doors opened. Figures stepped out, human soldiers, tall and armored in black suits with glowing blue visors. They moved in silence, weapons ready. Their leader's armor bore a white eagle on the chest. He looked at the destruction around him and then spoke through the external comm. "This planet is under human protection now." The Vorethi stared at them in disbelief. The Draxian troops tried to regroup, but the humans moved faster. Precision shots, clean strikes, every enemy fell before they could fire twice. The battlefield went quiet. Iran stepped out from the bunker, walking through the dust and smoke until he stood before the human leader. "You came," he said softly. The leader nodded. "We heard the call." Iran looked at the soldiers around him, their armor shining in the firelight, their eyes unreadable. There was something in their presence, not just strength but fury. "Who are you?" he asked. The leader's voice was calm. "We are what the galaxy forgot. We are what it should have feared." He turned to his soldiers. "Secure the city. No one harms the survivors." As the humans marched forward, their ships thundered above, forming a wall of steel between the planet and the stars. Iran looked up at the sky, the same sky that had burned hours ago. Now it glowed with the light of human engines. He whispered, maybe the stories were true. Maybe the humans never died. Far above, in orbit, the human flagship UNS Fearless prepared for its next move. The war had just begun. The morning after the attack, Vorith Prime looked like a world reborn from fire. Smoke still covered the broken cities, and the ground was filled with black marks from the Draxian bombardment. Yet above the ruined skyline, there was a strange peace. The sky was no longer red. It was filled with metal giants, the ships of humanity. Dozens of battleships hovered in orbit, their shadows stretching across the land. Their hulls were built for war, dark and sharp, glowing with blue energy. Every few seconds, drop pods fell like silver comets, bringing more soldiers down to the surface. The people of Vorith Prime came out from their shelters. They looked up at the ships with fear and hope mixed together. The Draxian army, once so confident, was gone. The few that survived had been hunted through the night by the human troops. At the center of the chaos stood Admiral Kale Arden, commander of the UNS Fearless Fleet. His armor was heavy, marked with scars from countless battles. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold and sharp like steel. He looked over the burning city and spoke through his comm, his voice echoing through every human channel. "Operation Iron Dawn is complete. The enemy stronghold is neutralized. Begin recovery of survivors. No mercy for Draxian forces." The soldiers moved fast, clean and silent. They worked like machines, building camps, setting up shield walls, scanning the ruins for survivors. Iran Voss watched from a distance, amazed. The humans were nothing like the stories. They were not wild or uncontrolled. They were disciplined, calm, and terrifyingly efficient. He walked toward the command tent where Kyle was meeting his officers. Guards blocked his path, but then let him in after Kale gave a silent nod. "You are the one who sent the distress call?" Kale asked without turning. "Yes," Aaron said quietly. "I didn't think anyone would hear it." Kyle finally looked at him. "We hear everything. We just choose when to answer." Iran didn't understand. "Why help us?" "The humans vanished long ago. Many said you were destroyed in the Great Collapse." Kyle's expression didn't change. "We were not destroyed. We rebuilt, and we remembered." Outside the tent, thunder rolled again. This time, it was the sound of more human ships arriving. Massive carriers entered the atmosphere, dropping tanks and walkers. Their engines made the ground shake. Everywhere, people stopped and stared. The air filled with a low hum, the hum of human power, but not everyone was at peace. Far across the horizon, a few Draxian warships had escaped the first attack. They regrouped in the upper atmosphere, trying to form a counterstrike. Inside the command tent, a voice shouted over the comm, "Admiral! Enemy signatures detected! Draxian ships preparing orbital fire!" Kyle didn't hesitate. He turned to his officers. "Deploy the Guardians. Full interceptor launch. End it before it begins." Within minutes, dozens of human fighters burst from the fleet. Their engines glowed blue as they raced through the clouds. They moved in perfect formation. Fast, precise, deadly. The Draxian ships fired first. Bolts of red plasma filled the sky. The humans answered with silence, then light. The Vorithi on the ground saw it as a storm of fire and sound. The Draxion fleet broke apart one by one, explosions lighting the upper sky. It lasted less than 3 minutes. When the last Draxian ship fell, the crowd on the surface cheered. For the first time in living memory, they saw the enemy run. Kyle watched the burning wreckage from his ship's bridge. His second officer, Commander Vale, stood beside him. "They were not ready for us," Vale said. Kyle replied softly, "No one ever is." He looked at the holographic map. The Draxion territory stretched across many systems, and this was only one of their conquests. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They will come again. And next time, they'll bring more," Vale asked. "Do we hold the planet, sir?" Kale's answer was short. "We hold, and we build." Back on the ground, Iran helped guide survivors into safe zones. Human medics moved between alien children, giving them food and medicine. Their armor was dark, but their actions were kind. It confused the Vorethi. How could being so strong also be so gentle? A small girl looked up at one of the human soldiers. "Are you angels?" she asked. The soldier paused, then smiled under his helmet. "No, we're just humans." Night fell again, but this time the stars shone bright. The human fleet hung above like a wall of light. Fires still burned on the horizon, but the people no longer hid in fear. Iran climbed to the top of a broken tower and watched the sky. He remembered the words the humans had spoken the night before. Humanity is coming. Now he understood. Humanity didn't come as saviors. They came as warriors, protectors forged in pain and fire. Far above, aboard the UNS Fearless, Kale stood before the main view screen. The stars reflected in his eyes. "Send message to Earth Command," he said. "Vorith Prime secured. The Draxion Empire has made first contact. They will not forget this day." The comm officer nodded. "Message sent, sir." Kyle stared into the dark of space and whispered to himself, "Neither will we." The humans had returned to the galaxy, and their arrival would change everything. The legend of the Fearless Fleet had just begun. The Shin galaxy had gone silent after the fall of Vorith Prime. Every world that once served the Draxion Empire now whispered a new name, humanity. But the Draxion Emperor was not ready to accept defeat. He called his generals and gave one order: find them, crush them, burn their name from the stars. And so began the second wave. Far above Vorith Prime, in the dark of space, the UNS Fearless Fleet floated like a sleeping monster. Its metal skin shimmered with blue light. Inside, hundreds of soldiers prepared for what they knew would come next. Admiral Kale Arden stood on the command deck, watching the holomap as red marks appeared, enemy fleets moving closer. His voice was calm. "Draxion reinforcements approaching from 3 systems. Prepare strike units. This time we take the fight to them." Commander Vale nodded. "No defense, sir." Kale's reply was cold. "Defense is for the weak. We strike first." Down on the planet, Iran Voss stood beside the Vorethi Council. They were rebuilding slowly, but fear still lived in their eyes. Iran asked the Admiral through a comm channel, "Will they come again?" Kale answered, "They already have." The next moment the sky trembled. Hundreds of Draxion warships dropped out of warp, their black hulls glowing red with heat. They filled the orbit like a swarm. The Vorethi screamed as alarms echoed across the cities, but Kyle was already ready. He raised his hand and gave one command: "All ships, engage." The humans moved with precision. Their fleet split into 3 wings: Fearless, Vanguard, and Hammerfall. Blue light erupted from their cannons. The Draxion fired back with red plasma that scorched the void. The battle turned the night into fire. In the chaos, Kyle's voice stayed steady. "Target their flagship. Break their heart." Inside his command pod, human pilot Lieutenant Sarah Quinn led the fighter squadron. Her ship cut through the flames like lightning. She saw Draxion fighters ahead, fast, sharp, deadly, but she didn't slow down. "For Earth," she said quietly, then opened fire. Explosions painted the stars. The Draxion pilots had never faced such coordination. The humans fought like they had done this 1,000 times, and maybe they had. The Draxion commander screamed into his comms, "Who are these monsters?" A calm human voice answered through the radio static, "We are humanity's wrath." On the surface, the Vorethi watched as the sky became a war zone of color. The ground shook with every explosion, yet there was beauty in it, a strange kind of hope glowing inside the chaos. Iran whispered to himself, "They're not fighting for power. They're fighting for memory." Hours passed. Ships burned, debris fell like meteors. Then the main Draxian dreadnought appeared, the Infernal Crown, the same ship that destroyed 10 planets in the past century. Kale stared at it from the bridge of the Fearless. "There you are," he said softly. Commander Vale looked at him. "Sir, that ship is 3 times our size," Kyle smiled. "Then it's a fair fight." The Fearless turned, engines roaring, charging straight toward the Draxian dreadnought. The crew didn't question. They trusted their admiral. They always did. As they closed in, Kyle opened all channels. His voice reached every soldier, every pilot, every ship. Remember the colonies they burned. Remember the people who never came home. This is not just war. This is justice. The Fearless fired every weapon. Beams of blue energy tore into the Draxian hull. The Infernal Crown struck back, tearing chunks from the human fleet. Both sides bled metal and fire. Then Kale gave his final order. "Bring the Hammerfall to Sector 5. Full kinetic launch." Moments later, from the dark side of the planet, a massive rail cannon platform came online. It locked onto the Draxian flagship and released a single projectile, a spear of pure tungsten, traveling faster than sound. The impact lit up the entire orbit. The Infernal Crown split in half, its engines exploding in a wave of red flame. The Draxian fleet broke formation. Many fled into hyperspace, others burned in the void. Kyle stood silent as the smoke cleared. The stars returned peaceful once more. Commander Vale whispered, "It's over." Kyle shook his head. "No, it's just beginning." Down on the planet, Iran watched the last flames fade from the sky. The people of Vorith Prime came out from their shelters, staring at the heavens with tears in their eyes. For the first time they felt safe. A young Vorethi boy ran to Iran. "Did they win?" he asked. Iran smiled weakly. "They always win." The boy looked up at the sky. "Are they gods?" Aaron answered softly, "No, they're humans. And that's much more terrifying." Far above, on the bridge of the Fearless, Kale stood alone, staring into the black. His ship was damaged, his fleet scattered, but his heart was steady. He opened a private channel to Earth Command. Vorith Prime secured again. Draxion forces in retreat. Humanity is now officially at war. A moment of silence passed. Then a reply came. Acknowledged. Proceed with Phase 2. Kyle closed the channel. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "We take the fight to their worlds next." He turned to the stars, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You started this war long ago, Draxion. Now you'll see how humanity ends one." The engines of the Fearless roared once again, and the fleet began to move toward the dark horizon. The wrath of humanity had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never forget it. The stars were quiet after the great battle. The UNS Fearless fleet drifted in deep orbit around Vorith Prime. The Draxian threat had been pushed back, but the victory felt heavy. Hundreds of ships were damaged, and thousands of soldiers were gone. Admiral Kale Arden stood alone on the bridge, looking through the glass window into the endless dark. His reflection looked tired, but his eyes were still sharp. Commander Vale entered quietly behind him. "The engineers report repairs will take 2 days, Vale said. Kyle nodded. "Good. The men need rest." There was silence for a while. Outside, small repair drones floated between the ships like glowing insects. Then Vale spoke again, his voice lower. "Sir, the message you sent to Earth Command." They replied. Kyle turned slowly. "Yes, but not what I expected." He activated the holoscreen. A faint blue message appeared. It showed a series of coordinates, strange numbers deep within unknown space. "What is it?" Vale asked. Kyle's face darkened. "A signal from the past." He explained that before humanity vanished from the galaxy, they had built secret vaults in the outer systems, hiding technology, weapons, and records from the Great War. The coordinates pointed to one of those vaults. Vale frowned. "So they were preparing for this." "Even back then," Kyle nodded. "We never stopped preparing. We waited." Down on the surface of Vorith Prime, Aaron Voss was with the Vorethi Council. They were rebuilding their homes with help from human engineers. The city was still scarred, but life had returned. Iran looked up at the sky, seeing the human ships glimmer above the clouds. "They fight like they remember something terrible," he said to an elder. The elder replied softly, "Maybe they do." That night, Iran was invited to the Fearless for a meeting with Kale. As he stepped inside the massive ship, he felt the weight of history in every corridor. The walls were old, scratched with battle scars, and some panels still carried marks from ancient wars. Kyle met him in the command chamber. "You wanted to see me," Iran said. Kyle turned from the star map. "Yes, I need to tell you the truth about us, about why we came." Iran listened closely as Kyle spoke in a steady tone. "Centuries ago, the Draxian Empire attacked our outer colonies. They burned our cities, enslaved our people, and left nothing but ashes. Humanity was almost destroyed. But we didn't die, we hid. We rebuilt in silence. We learned their ways, their weapons, their weakness." He looked at Iran with cold eyes. "We waited for them to forget us. And now they have." Iran felt a chill. "So you came back for revenge?" Kyle's voice was quiet. "We came back to finish what they started." Before Iran could reply, an alarm sounded. The ship's lights turned red. Commander Vale rushed in. "Admiral, we're detecting a new signal. Not Draxion, not Varithi. Something older." Kyle walked to the console. The signal repeated again and again, soft and rhythmic like a heartbeat. He stared at it for a moment, then whispered, "It's human." Everyone froze. "How can that be?" Vale asked. "No other fleets survived the Great Collapse." Kyle's face was unreadable. "Unless they were hidden, like us." He ordered a probe launched toward the coordinates. Minutes later, the hollow screen lit up with the image of a massive structure floating in deep space. A dark, metal station surrounded by debris. Its surface was covered with ancient symbols of Earth. The computer identified it. Echo 9 Human War Vault. Kyle clenched his fists. "Prepare the fleet." "We're going," Iran stepped forward. "You just fought a war. Why go now?" Kyle looked at him. "Because inside that vault lies our history, and maybe something the Draxians fear more than us." Hours later, the Fearless fleet left Vorith Prime. The Vorethi stood on the ground, watching as the human ships vanished into the stars. As they jumped into hyperspace, Kyle sat alone in his quarters, staring at an old metal emblem, the same white eagle that marked every human ship. He ran his fingers over it slowly. It was the emblem of Earth. He whispered to himself, "If the vault still lives, maybe Earth does too." The fleet arrived at the coordinates after several hours of travel. What they saw left everyone silent. A massive ring of broken ships surrounded the vault, ancient human war vessels, long dead, frozen in time. "Looks like a graveyard," Vale said quietly. Kale replied, "Or a warning." They sent a small team to enter the vault. The corridors inside were dark and cold. Dust floated like smoke in the air. Strange markings glowed faintly on the walls, messages written by humans long gone. Then they found it, a control chamber with a still active terminal. Kel touched the console. A holographic figure appeared, the image of a human admiral from centuries past. It spoke only one line before fading away. "If you're seeing this, then the war never ended." Kyle stared at the fading light. The room was silent. Vale whispered, "Sir, what does it mean?" Kyle looked out the viewport at the stars beyond and said quietly, "It means we were never the only ones who survived." Outside, in the darkness, several unknown signals flickered on the radar, faint, but growing stronger. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Prepare the fleet. Something is coming." The shadows of humanity's past were awakening again, and this time, they might not all be friendly. The alien flagship Tremora floated in silence near the Crimson Planet, its dark hull glowing with strange symbols. Inside, Commander Vrix watched the holographic screen as hundreds of smaller alien ships formed a blockade. They had captured one of humanity's relay stations and waited for any rescue attempt. But deep inside, Vrix felt uneasy. The humans had not answered the distress signal. No cries, no messages, just silence. And silence from humans was never good. Far away, beyond the red nebula, something moved. A faint distortion shimmered through space, like a ripple in water. The alien sensors picked it up, but it was already too late. Out of the ripple came a shape, massive, angular, burning with white-blue engines. Then another, and another. Within seconds, space itself seemed to open up, and a fleet unlike any seen before entered the system. Humanity's fearsome fleet had arrived. Each ship was covered with armored plating and glowing blue defense grids. Giant cannons pointed outward like sharp claws. The lead vessel, HMS Titanus, stood at the center, larger than any city the aliens had ever built. Its hull bore the mark of the United Human Defense Command, 3 silver stars over a black circle. Inside the command bridge of the Titanus, Admiral Rhea Valen stood tall, her eyes sharp as steel. She had received the silent distress signal 2 weeks ago. It came from the colony EOS 9, but when her team decoded the signal, they discovered something horrifying. It wasn't from humans. It was a trap created by the same aliens who had destroyed EOS 9. They had used human distress codes to lure their fleet into an ambush, but Rhea didn't come unprepared. All ships, battle formation Delta 7, she commanded. No mercy, no warning shots. Her voice echoed across the fleet. The humans didn't come to talk. They came to end the threat once and for all. The alien commander Vrix panicked as human ships spread out like a deadly storm. Plasma fields shimmered, energy weapons charged, and missiles armed. "Fire everything!" he shouted. Thousands of red beams lanced toward the human fleet. Explosions flared across space. For a moment it looked like the aliens had won. But then the smoke cleared. The human fleet was untouched. Their shields absorbed every blast. Then from the Titanus, a low hum grew into a roar. A beam of pure energy fired straight ahead, cutting through 3 enemy ships in one strike. The aliens had never seen power like this. Their communications filled with panic and static. Commander Vrix watched his screen as ship after ship vanished from his formation. "Impossible," he whispered. "Their weapons, how?" Humanity had changed. After years of silence, they had evolved their technology, fusing human instinct with cold machine precision. The fleet was no longer a force of exploration. It was a weapon forged from survival. Inside the Titanus, Admiral Rhea watched calmly as alien ships fell apart under her command. "They thought we were gone," she said softly. "They thought humanity had burned out. They were wrong." Still, she knew something was off. The aliens' formation was too scattered, too weak. This couldn't be their main force. Then it hit her. The distress signal wasn't just bait for an ambush. It was bait for something else. Something far worse. "Admiral," a second officer called, "new readings at the edge of the system." Rhea turned. The screen flickered with energy spikes. One massive object emerged from the dark, an alien supercarrier the size of a small moon. Its surface pulsed like living metal. Behind it, strange tendrils of light twisted around, forming portals. The true enemy had arrived. On board the Tremora, Vrix looked up in fear as the supercarrier appeared behind his fleet. "No," he said quietly, realizing the truth. "They didn't call us for help. They used us to draw them out." Admiral Rhea clenched her fists. "All units, brace for second contact," she said. "We're not done yet." The fleet reformed, engines burning bright. Human ships positioned themselves between the colony wrecks and the alien giant. In the dark of space, 2 mighty forces stared across the void. The fearsome fleet stood ready, not for vengeance, but for survival. Rhea took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the growing shadow. "They wanted humanity's fear," she said, voice calm but cold. "Now they're about to meet it." And as the alien supercarrier charged its weapons, the human fleet answered with their own, hundreds of lights flaring across the black sky, ready to unleash everything they had. The battle that followed would decide not just a system, but the future of 2 civilizations. Space burned like fire as the battle raged on. The dark sky was filled with explosions, laser trails, and falling debris. The human fleet moved in perfect formation, every ship striking with deadly precision. But even as alien ships broke apart one by one, Admiral Rhea Valen knew this was only the beginning. The alien supercarrier loomed ahead, so massive that its shadow stretched across entire planets. It didn't move like a machine, it twisted and pulsed like something alive. Strange symbols glowed on its surface, and every few seconds, dark energy burst from its core, tearing nearby ships apart with invisible force. On the bridge of the Titanus, the lights flickered as sensors tried to read the massive ship. "Admiral," said her engineer, "its energy output is beyond anything we've seen. It's pulling power from the star itself." Rhea narrowed her eyes. "So they learn to eat stars now," she said. "Let's see if they can digest us." She turned to her officers. "Prepare the Nova Charge. All ships maintain distance from the Titanus." The Nova Charge, humanity's final weapon, was a contained singularity bomb, a piece of technology never meant for use. It could destroy anything within its range, even the ship that launched it. But if the alien ship reached the inner system, Earth's colonies would fall one after another. Meanwhile, aboard the alien supercarrier, the air was cold and wet. The walls pulsed like veins, carrying glowing liquid energy. In the heart of the ship, the Overmind watched through thousands of eyes. It was not a commander. It was not a being. It was the shadow beyond the stars, the true power behind every invasion humanity had faced. "We see you, human." The voice echoed across the void, reaching the minds of every human officer. "We built the signal. We brought you here. Now you will end as all worlds end." The crew of the Titanus shivered as the alien voice invaded their thoughts. One officer fell to his knees, clutching his head. Another began to scream, "Block the psychic field!" Rhea ordered. "Shut down the neural links!" Her command broke through the panic. The crew fought to stabilize the systems. Sparks flew from the panels, smoke filled the bridge, but the humans kept control. "They're trying to break our will," said her first officer. "If they win the mind, the fleet will fall." Rhea stood tall, voice steady. "Then they picked the wrong species." Outside, the Fearsome fleet reformed again. Despite losses, every ship responded to her command. They moved through fire and darkness, forming a barrier between the alien giant and the dying sun. In the shadows, something stirred. Tiny human drones, invisible to sensors, slipped through the chaos. They were carrying the Nova Charge toward the alien supercarrier. Back on the Tremora, Commander Vrix watched the scene unfold. His fleet was gone, destroyed by both sides. Yet in that moment he felt something strange, respect. "They fight even when there is no hope," he said quietly. "Maybe that is why they always return." The alien Overmind sensed the Nova drones approaching. "You think destruction will save you?" It whispered into Rhea's mind. "You bring fire to the stars, but we are born from it." Rhea smiled bitterly. "Then let's see which fire burns brighter." The drones locked onto the alien supercarrier's weak point, a pulsing core at the center of its chest-like structure. The Nova Charge armed itself, glowing brighter with each passing second. But suddenly, a burst of dark energy destroyed 2 drones. The rest were losing signal fast. "Manual control," Rhea shouted. "Route control through my link." Her crew protested, but she overrode them. A direct neural link to the drone swarm activated, connecting her mind to their vision. The world blurred. She saw through the eyes of the machines, flying through flames, weaving between debris, heading straight into the monster's heart. On the bridge, her body trembled, eyes glowing faint blue. "Rhea," her officer called, "you won't survive that connection." She didn't answer. Through the drone's cameras, she saw the alien core pulsing like a black sun. The Overmind's voice echoed again. "You cannot kill what has no end," Rhea whispered back. "Then I'll make an ending." The last drone reached the core. In the next instant, the Nova Charge detonated. A blinding flash filled the system, brighter than the sun itself. The explosion tore through the alien supercarrier, ripping it apart piece by piece. Energy waves rippled through space, destroying everything in range. Even the Titanus was thrown back, its hull cracking under the pressure. When the light faded, there was only silence. The alien fleet was gone. The supercarrier was nothing but drifting ash. But the Titanus was still alive, scarred but standing. Rhea opened her eyes slowly, breathing hard. She was weak but alive. Around her the crew cheered and cried. The fearsome fleet had survived, but something about the silence felt wrong. "Admiral," whispered her officer, long-range scanners picking something up. Behind the debris, Rhea turned toward the screen. A faint energy signal appeared far beyond the system. Not one, but many. The shadow beyond the stars had more than one form, she whispered. "It's not over." The camera of the fleet drones showed movement in the darkness, thousands of faint lights awakening, stretching across the void, like eyes opening one by one. The battlefield was silent. For the first time in hours, the endless sound of explosions was gone. The human fleet drifted among the wreckage, surrounded by the broken remains of alien ships and burning fragments of the destroyed supercarrier. The stars themselves looked dim, as if space was holding its breath. Admiral Rhea Valen stood on the bridge of the Titanus, staring at the screens. Her ship was damaged beyond repair, half of the systems offline, and many of her people lost. But even with everything falling apart, she was still standing. Humanity was still standing. The radio crackled. "Admiral, survivors from the forward fleet reporting in. We still have ships alive on the outer rim." Rhea nodded slowly. "Tell them to regroup. We're not done yet." The crew moved with quiet determination. Sparks still flickered from broken panels, and oxygen levels were low, but no one gave up. Every surviving pilot, every engineer, every soldier knew they had lived through something impossible. Outside, drones continued scanning the area. The alien supercarrier was gone, completely vaporized. But behind the fading light of the explosion, the sensors picked up something new. Dozens of faint energy readings moving together far beyond the debris field. The shadow beyond the stars had survived. Rhea stared at the readings. "They're retreating," her officer said. "But they're not gone." "No," Rhea whispered. "They're regrouping. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning." Her mind flashed back to EOS 9, the colony that had sent the original distress signal. The people there had been wiped out before help arrived. She thought of the millions who had fallen in silence, the families waiting for news that never came. For them, for Earth, for every human lost in the stars, she would not stop. "Prepare the beacon," Rhea ordered. "Broadcast to every colony, every ship, every outpost. Tell them what happened here. Tell them humanity has returned to the fight." The communications officer hesitated. "Ma'am, the network is down." The Nova explosion cut through half the channels. "Then fix it," Rhea said calmly. "If the universe is listening, it's time they remember our name." Far across the void, the surviving alien commanders gathered in fear. Their fleets were shattered, their masters silent. The overmind that had led them was gone, consumed by the very weapon it tried to stop. For the first time in their long existence, the invaders felt something new, uncertainty. In one of the alien ships, Commander Vrix limped through smoke and darkness. He was the last of his crew. His claws shook as he looked out through the shattered glass. Human ships still burned like stars in the distance, damaged but alive. "They should have died," one of his sub-commanders hissed weakly. "Why do they always come back?" Vrix looked at the stars. "Because they fear nothing," he said quietly. "Not even the end." Back on the Titanus, Rhea watched as power returned to the communication beacons. A bright signal pulsed outward, echoing through every system. It was not a cry for help this time. It was a message of defiance. The message was short and simple. "To all human colonies, the fearsome fleet stands. We faced the darkness and did not fall. Humanity rises again." Across distant worlds, people watched the message appear on their screens. On the mining colony of Vega 12, workers dropped their tools and cheered. On Mars, children pointed at the sky, watching the light of the signal pass by. Even on the old ruins of EOS 9, the signal reflected from the dust and ashes, glowing faintly like a whisper of hope. And far beyond, in the deep void where no human eye had ever reached, the shadows stirred once more. Thousands of alien vessels gathered in silence, rebuilding, waiting. But this time, they moved with caution, because they had seen what humanity could do. Rhea looked out the window of her cracked bridge, the endless dark stretching before her. "They'll come again," said her second officer softly. She nodded. "Let them," he frowned. "And if we can't stop them next time?" Rhea smiled faintly. "Then we'll make them remember us again. That's what humans do. We survive, we fight, and we rise." As her words echoed, the fleet began to move. Damaged ships lit their engines, forming a new formation among the stars. The Titanus led the way, its lights flickering but bright. Together, they turned toward the unknown, heading into the darkness from which no one had ever returned. But now the darkness feared them. The galaxy would soon learn what it meant to call for aid, and find not mercy, but humanity's fearsome fleet. The story of Rhea Valen and the fleet of Titans would spread across worlds, whispered among alien soldiers and written in human history forever. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer the hunted. Humanity had risen again.